Hello, David here, and the project for today is determining where this floor jack is leaking. I'm always getting a small puddle of oil at the rear of the jack. What I think I'm going to do is clean it off with some brake clean to see if I could determine where the leak is coming from. This is a 2.5-ton Pro Lift made by the Shinn company of China. Hey, I wonder if they also make egg rolls. It's a perfect name for egg rolls, don't you think? Cleaning off the hydraulic cylinder. As I'm jacking up the car, I'm not getting any leaks on this cylinder right there. Sometimes the O-ring leaks in here, and this is still pretty dry. And if this is leaking, you'll notice a leak as you're pumping. Try some more. Oh, small drop around there. I'm going to lower the car and flip the jack upside down. Okay, I'm on the other side of the jack. I don't see anything leaking here either. See what happens when I extend the ram. I don't know if you have to have resistance on the jack at all. This is oily. I'm going to assume that the leak is here. I think this needs a new seal right there. It's not a fast leak, it's a slow leak. Do some research, see if I could get some parts. I searched all over the internet looking for companies that specialized in floor jack parts. I was able to find 3 companies that specialize in such parts, and 2 of them did not bother to reply to my email messages, and the company that did is blackhawkparts.com. I have no relationship with them and they're not a sponsor, but for this particular floor jack they have a repair kit called the G489 repair kit that they sell for $39.85. and shipping's about $11 for a US postal service, and they offer other methods of shipment. If you need next day or second day air, they'll accommodate that for a certain price. That's what you get in the kit. Should be here in about a week. The rebuild kit was delivered today, and it took 5 days. I guess they ought to get their money back because they shipped it priority mail today. This is what you get. There's no instructions. Get some O-rings. There's a seal in there, and then there's a plug for the reservoir. Maybe $15 worth of parts. However, these are probably the correct size parts. I hate to have to go around with a bunch of old worn out O-rings and try to match them up at a hardware store. The next step is to drain the hydraulic oil, and you don't do it by either of these 2 fillers. If you try to do that, you're going to lose the check ball and the spring, and your pump won't work anymore. It won't jack up. Ask me how I know, because I've done it. Look over here. That screw in there, that's a drain fill plug right there. Get a pin under there. I'm going to take this spring off. I'm going to use my drum brake tool. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but that's what it's made for, right? There we go. Okay. And don't lose that. Okay, I'm lowering the jack. I noticed that the best way to access the ram is to lay the jack on its side and then raise the lifting arm of the jack. This is what I'm calling the lifting arm. You can see that. As far as turning this piece out, got one of these huge 18-inch adjustable wrenches. There's no clearance for it to fit. I'm going to try to remove the whole cylinder. If I get this bar out of here. Oh, this is coming up. Come on, Papa. Okay, this was 17 millimeters. These four are 19 millimeters. Obviously this nut was made during the Chinese New Year because it doesn't match the other three. Just put an adjustable wrench on it. See if the impact socket fits over it. That won't fit over it either. See if we can persuade the cylinder to come out of there. I got it. It's a good thing that this part has an open end. It just comes right out of the pin that's on the handle. Which is this pin right here. Can you see that? Just got everything chucked up in a vise. See if I could turn this top off. Well, the bottom part's turning. Not the top. Whoa! It's rags. Take this to the pan. Here's what I have from separating the two parts. Got the cylinder part here. Just pull that ram out of there. Can't see signs of wear on the piston. Could possibly be a problem for the leaking. I have a feeling the seal has failed. On this part, I would like to get the top off so that I can replace the O-ring that's under that cap. Here's the other part. There's an O-ring down there. Don't really see much of anything inside. There's an O-ring in here. Right in there. I'll replace that. And there's a strainer. That strainer, can you see that? This fell out of somewhere. And it looked to me like it was positioned in there like that. I don't know where else. It doesn't fit in that smaller hole. It fits in that larger hole. But I don't have an expanded drawing. I don't know if it goes inside there or if it goes right here. I'm really not sure about that. It seems to be the only place that can go. There are two holes in the bottom of there, but those are both large. I see something. See this hole right there? This screen fits in that hole if you put it in on an angle. It fits quite well, as you can see. I hope that's got the nut end of that top cap and the vise. Let's see if I could twist this off by hand. Ooh, it's moving. It's sliding off, it's not even threaded. Wonderful. And there's an O-ring right there. I'm going to degrease everything with some alcohol. Blow it out with some compressed air. Let's pull that O-ring out of there. There's another O-ring in there. Right in there. Whoops. That's it. Get that groove cleaned out really good. I'm going to clean off the old O-rings because I'm going to match them up to the new ones, and I don't want to get any dirty oil on them. Son of a gun, I just noticed this. I only have one O-ring at this size. They shorted me an O-ring. I need two of these. One for there, and one for there. Contact the company, see what they say. Alright, I contacted the company to see if they'll send me one more large O-ring. In the meantime, I'll put this one in. Got to lubricate it with some fresh jack oil. I'll put one more on there. Don't be stingy. All right. Let's put it in there. Focused yet? All right. That one is in. Call me crazy, but the invented. I mix up the old with the new. I'm just going to put some red fingernail polish on the old ones so I don't mix them up. Because in case the company won't honor my request for making up that lost O-ring, I might have to run down to the hardware store. I think the seal on the ram just pries off with a screwdriver. I don't see any snap rings in there. Get this off without stabbing myself. Okay, you could see a lip on there. See that lip right there? Then there's this washer here. There's the old one. I'm going to clean that off with alcohol and then blow it off. Looks like this whole thing comes off. There it goes. You're going to hear it snap on. wipe this out the best that I could. Put this piston in the bore. Some more jack oil in there. It's tight. There we go. Squirting all over the place. Take this old O-ring out from the bottom of the base. Okay, so it measures up with the other old one. Yep, both the same. See if we can get the O-ring on this pump. It's hard to see. There's a white ring in there and a black ring. Might be that white ring, I'm not sure. Okay, got that one, that's the top one. I don't know how that white ring comes out of there because it looks like it's rigid plastic. And here's the bottom one. Those two O-rings appear to be the same size. Let's see if I have two like that in the kit. Here's that white thing. It's kind of supple. I don't know if I want to disturb it. So I have two of these new ones. They appear to be close. Now one is slightly larger than the other. See how it matches up to these old ones. pretty close. I don't know, I'll try it. Put that in the pile with the old stuff. If I look down in here, it looks like there's 2 white washers in there. And I don't know if you can see that. The kid only gave me one, which is this one. So I'm just going to replace one. Kind of misshapen now. See how it matches the new one. Yeah, it's pretty close. So now to fit that O-ring in there. That's going to be a trick. And I don't remember if the O-ring goes below the white ring or above the white ring. Try not to damage it. Okay, got the top one in. Put that white ring on it. I bet there's a tool to do this. What if I could put it on this? I don't think that's going to work. Make sure that O-ring is in there. And it's not seated. Okay, I think it is now. There we go. Had I known how much trouble this was, I would have left that white one in there. Yeah, look at that. I think the best bet would be to take the O-ring out. Put the white one in first. Maybe get that O-ring in the lower mount. Well, I finally got those two black O-rings and the white washer in. I'm glad there's only one white washer because that was a really pain to get in. Took me a long time. And that white washer was misshapen, so glad I didn't take out that lower white washer. Let's see if the plunger fits in there. All right, glad that part's done with. Just need some extra, I need one extra part. A big applause to the parts company. The minute they received my email, they popped a new O-ring in the mail to me. I'll get back to construction. Get that new O-ring on there. Don't want to do is you don't want to twist it. If it's twisted, it'll leak. And a good way to untwist an O-ring is to run something small and round around it. Go around it like this. Do that a couple of times. That'll straighten out a twisted O-ring. So make sure whatever you're using is not sharp. It has to be smooth. I'm using a punch. Put a little jack oil on that. Okay, that's untwisted. Put a little oil on that. Put this filter screen in. Pinch stand is at the top. And that goes in on an angle. Get in as far as you can so it doesn't fall out. There we go. Now for this cylinder, the end with the fill screw goes close to the end of the valve body. That's the valve body right there. And This screw is on the top. Let me lubricate that. Want to slip it in without tearing the O-ring. Put a little more lube on there. Having a hard time getting this cylinder to seat, probably because of the size of the O-ring. I'm hoping I could draw it down without tearing the O-ring. One thing about this hydraulic jack oil does come with leak inhibitors. So if you have a leaky floor jack, you could try draining out the oil and replacing it with a leak inhibiting jack oil, and that might buy you a lot of time. Because what it does is it makes the O-ring swell, and that could stop a leak. I'm glad I was able to get this out of the body of the jack so I didn't have to buy that socket. Seems to be easier to turn when I put a little forward pressure on the head of the wrench. Okay, that's about where it stops. A little torque for good luck. think that's going to be it. Well, as you can see, my float plug moved all the way around to the other side, so I loosened the top nut, brought the fill plug around. Then I'm trying to get a hold on the whole cylinder so it doesn't turn with the nut, because you can see it'll want to turn with the nut. So I've got an old serpentine belt with a vice grip here to hold around the cylinder. If I could put some pressure on that while I'm turning. Seems to be working. I don't know if you could see the top nut. Yeah. I want that clocked right on the 12 o'clock position. So it's up at the top. Okay, that should be the end of it. Okay, let's mount this cylinder. There it is. Spring goes through here and through there. This thing right here, that U-shaped thing has to catch on this pin here. Come out? It does come out. Should make it easier to get back in. Might be a good idea to put some grease on that. Guess I gotta catch this spring first. There we go. Oh, that's a secret. The flat does go against the either top or the bottom of that U-shaped thingy. That spring disconnected. That top spring's hard to get through. Let's do a review. This pin has to be in place before you put it in here because the round end of the pins are too large in diameter to go through this slot. So you have to turn the pin so the slot is either facing up or facing down to get into the slot on this piston. So there's a slot on the piston and a slot on this pin. Coming around here, this piece pivots. So the upper spring does go on here. This is that hole that I thought the end of the spring might go into, but no, that's for the cotter pin that goes through here. And of course the lower spring goes on there. So I'm going to try to connect this upper spring without having it slip off. I think the next thing I should do is put these bolts in. Otherwise, with the springs installed, I'm going to have trouble getting those in place. These are 19mm. And yes, on this one, I had to file it down to 19mm. It fit my impact socket, and I found out the impact socket was loose. On the 19mm snap-on socket, it was too tight. So I filed it down to fit the snap-on socket. Starting them by hand so I don't get them cross-threaded. Get this crossbar in. Got the springs on. The replacement kit has a rubber plug that goes in there, but I'm just going to use that screw plug. I think it's been working very well. Put whatever I have in here. You should really use a funnel for this. Spilling stuff. It's about an inch away from the opening. Spilling stuff all over the place, and you can't even see what I'm doing. Yeah, that's the end of my bottle. There's my mess on the floor. Put the plug off. I'm going to pump it to bleed out some of the air. Oh, did you hear that? I'm gonna have to top this cylinder off when I get my next bottle of jack oil. That's not going up too high. I'm going to assume that I don't have enough fluid in there. So I got to resupply some jack oil. Got some of this. They're not a sponsor. You notice they have this handy filler spout on the top. Don't believe it. There's no way that little spout's going to reach all the way down in there. My automotive funnel doesn't reach down there, so I made this one, which has a pretty small orifice there. And that barely fits through here. I suppose I could take this bar out of here and might make it easier, but who wants to do that? Of course, it's got a blocker on the cap, so it won't pour. Okay, try to resist the temptation of pouring the whole thing in at once. Put some newspaper under your jack too, because no matter how careful you are, it's going to spill. Yeah, I filled it up. Let's pump out the air. I could see some bubbles coming to the top. Valve is open. Let's pump it with the valve closed. I could hear it sucking air. Let's open the valve. Pump it up again. Open the valve, let it down. Gonna add some more oil. Close the valve. We should add some more oil now. So the lift should be going up higher than this. I'm going to let the air out. What I mean is I'm going to open the valve. Add some more oil. Add some more oil again. Getting a little more height, but there should be more. Let me open the valve. Add some more oil. Close the valve and pump it up. Close the valve, pump it up again. I think it needs more oil because the ram, excuse me, the ram's not going up high enough. They could take anywhere from 30 to 50 cycles from going all the way down to all the way up. I finally got to a point where it's going up to its design height. And then in the beginning, when you release it and it goes down, the oil wants to pop out of the reservoir. I'm doing this with the reservoir open, of course. So you got to slow it down when it gets near the bottom, otherwise it's going to shoot out the reservoir, because the reservoir is going from the slave cylinder to the master cylinder, which is a reservoir. And you shouldn't hear any more burping by the time you're done. So you do this until you don't hear that air gurgling. Listen carefully. You almost have it all out. And then when you have it all out, then with the jack down, then you can top off the reservoir. You don't want to fill the reservoir with the jack up, with the lifting arm up, because all that oil in the slave cylinder goes back into the reservoir, and it could pop the cap off or it could spill out. So you don't want too much in there. I imagine that if you have a screw top on your reservoir and you tighten it down really hard, I suppose it could pop a seal, but I don't know about that. I got most of the air bled out. I topped off the reservoir, cleaned everything off with an alcohol soaked rag. Let's see if it lifts the car. Yeah, that worked pretty well. I'm going to put some newspaper under the jack and let it sit overnight and see if there's any leakage. Okay, it's been 24 hours since I let the floor jack rest. Let's see if there's any oil spots underneath the floor jack. Nothing. I'm pleased. Let's consider this project a success. I want to thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and ring that bell for more great content from David GPO. Bye now.